Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
We're Val and Wayne, two full-time RVers that live in a 39-foot Class A diesel pusher. But with a tow hitch on the back, I think we're clocking in closer to 40 feet.
40 feet. And we get many questions all the time about rig size. Is 40 feet too big?
Yeah.
What rig size should I get?
Yeah, people actually ask us, what size rig should I get?
Should I get a tag axle? We know it's 45 feet, but maybe it drives better. And maybe 45 feet is too big.
Yeah, so what is too big, or how small is too small?
The answers are never quite as simple as many people think they are, especially non-RVers or people who are new to the lifestyle in general.
So we thought we would take this opportunity to honestly look at the pros and cons of being in a bigger size rig, so that would help those of you that are currently struggling with the decision.
Struggling, yeah. The struggle is real.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the cons of owning a big rig.
I think the overarching con of having a big rig is more planning. Let's take route planning. You've got to use a GPS, of course, an RV-friendly GPS. You need to avoid low bridges and weight restrictions and tight mountain roads. It just does take a little planning. We use RV Trip Wizard and Garmin, and a lot of times the two don't meet.
And Google.
And we do use Google Maps as well, just to throw it in, just to make sure we're avoiding road closures and that sort of thing. So it just does take a little more planning.
And the destination requires planning too. For example, fuel stops. We take a lot of back roads, as you've seen in our videos, and there are not a lot of truck stops on those back roads. We need truck stops, of course, because of the higher canopies and the higher fill rate at the pump. But all of that needs to be planned.
Yeah, we just can't stop at a regular fuel station. It's just not, maneuverability just not going to happen. But also planning our stay, and that's what most people ask about. You see this question all the time on the Facebook pages, and is it big enough? Can I stay? If I buy this rig, will I be able to go? Do you ever have any problems?
Can I fit?
Can I fit? And a lot of people say, oh, no problem, no problem. You know, I've never had a problem. But it just really depends on where you do want to stay.
Yeah, we've been shut out before.
So you've got to check sizes on the website and reading reviews and looking at satellite images. So it really does take planning on where you're going to stay, the bigger your rig.
Planning. You do a lot of planning. Sometimes, not all the time, but many times, all of that planning unfortunately does remove the spontaneity out of travel days. We just can't stop when we get the whim. If we see something interesting, we're like, hey, pull in there. No, that all has to be calculated. Even stopping somewhere to eat needs to be planned.
Right. I have to find a parking lot along the route that's big enough for our rig to park. And then is there a restaurant or some kind of eatery in that vicinity that we can walk to after we parked our rig? So many times, if there isn't anything on the route, I have to plan to make lunch, and we'll stop at a rest stop where there's always good parking at a rest stop, and we eat in the rig.
Okay, Valerie, let's talk about another con, and that is driving and maneuverability.
Yeah, is that a con? There may be some people who disagree with us, or me, but it all depends on your comfort level. For example, you don't mind a bigger rig. You would feel just as comfortable with a bigger rig or
True.
a smaller rig.
Yeah, in fact, the bigger the better for me. I like big rigs.
But for me, I would be way more comfortable driving a rig smaller than this.
A lot of people would.
I
yeah.
just would. And another thing too, not only just the length, but specifically tail swing. And bigger rigs are going to have the potential of having a bigger tail swing than smaller rigs.
Yeah, tail swing, for those of you who may not know, is the distance to the very back of your rig to the distance of the very back of your final axle, your rear axle. So that's really another way to say it is, how far is this thing sticking out past my rear tires?
And we do find people struggling with this. Even this morning we saw a fifth wheel with a huge tail swing pulling out of here. And
yeah, and you can see any kind of videos on YouTube about people not calculating their tail swing, and so they hit things.
Yeah, so when you're looking at buying a bigger rig, I would just factor that in as far as your comfort level with the size and maneuverability. Another con is you may not be able to stay where you want to stay.
Yeah, let's face it, we have not been able to stay everywhere we want. That's the truth.
Not everywhere, and some parks are off limits, some roads are off limits, although we have been known to push the limits on the roads, getting to where we want to go.
I've taken this rig into some funky places, and a lot of that is not shown on video.
So many sites do have size limits, and that goes for private RV parks, and especially national parks or state parks and city parks, Corps of Engineer parks.
National parks.
Yeah, national park
That's a whole different
campgrounds.
thing.
You don't find many that can accommodate big rigs.
No.
And Harvest Host and even Boondockers Welcomes, where we stay, you do have size limits. So the bigger you are, it's not that you can't find them, but the bigger you are, you don't have as many options. So where you're going to stay, you do have limitations.
Yeah, and for example, we like to visit friends and family, and they're all over the country. We call that mooch docking when we visit. That means you're staying inside someone's property or on their driveway, for example, and that has not been an option for us anywhere because those friends with even very large houses usually don't have space that's doable for us.
Right. And it's not just the size of the site at the park to consider, but it really is also the roads getting in and the approach inside the park. That's why it's important, I think, to look at satellite or if you're in an especially big rig, but to read reviews and people talk about how difficult it is to maneuver in the park. So that's just something you're going to have to live with. It's not like you're not going to be able to stay anywhere within a reasonable distance of where you want to be, but you're just not going to be able to stay everywhere that you might want to stay.
Here's another con, and that is that larger rigs typically are going to require a little bit more maintenance.
Right. Bigger means more square footage, so that means more to wash, more to wax.
Yeah, it was really easy to wash our little 22-foot travel trailer that we lived in, for example.
Yeah, and even cleaning inside, just the bigger it is, there's just more square footage to clean.
Yeah, much easier than the large house that we had that we gave up.
Yeah. Yes, I will just never forget vacuuming in a room that I hardly ever used and just going, this is just way too much square footage, what am I doing? So on a much smaller scale with RVs, but it still is something to consider.
That and things will need maintenance. That's what bigger means. You've got more things. You've got more slide outs, for example, and they're going to need maintenance. You've got more potential problems with
slide outs.
Yeah, ask us how we know about
Yes.
slide outs. And
Yes.
I know we're not the only ones that can get frustrated about slide outs, but there are more things to lube and more windows to lube and fix and clean. And
Right.
you get the picture.
Right. So bigger can mean a little bit more maintenance.
Okay, here's another con, and that is the larger the rig, the larger the expense. Usually, rigs that are larger are more expensive. And note that I precisely use the term usually because there are a lot of factors. For example, you want to check floor plans. The smaller floor plan in one model will be significantly less than the larger floor plan in the same model. But obviously, you can pay different amounts of money for different amounts of Class A's, for example. But
Right.
generally,
Yeah, they're big. There are big and small rigs at all price points.
but generally, larger means more money.
Right. Another one is fuel efficiency or fuel cost. So
Yeah,
in
that's true.
general, the bigger and the heavier the rig, the less fuel efficient it's going to be, and therefore more fuel costs.
More things needing replacement when they wear out, like a a second or third AC.
Right.
Maybe you have one AC. This rig has 3, for example.
Right. A smaller rig usually is going to have one AC, but a bigger one is going to have 2 or 3, which of course can go wrong and you need replacement. But not just that. Not
Hey,
just
Valerie,
ACs.
did we mention slides?
Slide.
More slide mechanisms. Those can wear out.
And they will. And they do go wrong. And so the more you have, the more that can go wrong, the more expensive. What else?
Slide toppers.
Slide toppers.
Fabric rips, more of that. Things like that.
Yes, leaky windows, more tires possibly in a bigger rig. So all in all, could be more expensive.
Yeah, and then there's also the reality, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but there's a need for a tow vehicle where we go. For example, if we go to a national park or something like that, we have to park on the outside like Valerie was explaining, and then we need to be able to drive in. So you have to be able to pull a toad with your bigger rig. Some people have smaller rigs that they just use to not only park, but to travel around in.
Right. So if you have 2 vehicles, then it's going to be more expensive to maintain and operate than just one smaller rig that you're driving around. Okay, another con of a bigger rig.
More cons?
More con. Just one more con.
One more con. Okay.
The storage. Trying to find storage for a bigger rig. It's more difficult to find bigger storage and it is more costly.
Yeah, even as full-timers who don't store a rig, finding storage for a larger rig when you want to travel outside of the RV, whether that's you want to fly home somewhere to meet family, you want to go on a cruise, you want to go to a wedding, it's more difficult to find storage for a larger rig.
Right, storage is usually priced by foot. So the bigger, the more expensive. Moving on to the pros.
Yay, we get pros. And there are a lot.
Yeah, of course there are. That's why everybody struggles with the decision. So the big one is comfort, of course.
Yeah, comfort. We're talking about more personal space with a larger rig.
Yeah, you have dedicated spaces for sleeping and eating and relaxing.
There's all kinds of reasons for space. Some rigs are bigger than an apartment, obviously,
Yes.
and have all of the luxury amenities of an apartment or a sticks and bricks home.
Yes, and you know, with a more space, you get less cabin fever, especially in inclement weather, or it's either too hot or too cold or too buggy to be outside. And the smaller the space, it can really...
That's a great point, Valerie, because you can't be outside all the time. And we've been fighting weather. Even here in Kansas, we've had some doozy of storms that lasted quite a while, and you've got to be inside.
Yeah. So, and of course, meal prep is going to be easier in a bigger rig. You've got more counter space to work with. You've got more pantry to store more things, and you've got a bigger refrigerator.
Bigger bathrooms, for example. Maybe you have more than one bathroom. Maybe you have 2 bathrooms. We only have 1.
Yeah. I mean, one of the major reasons I didn't want 2 bathrooms because I certainly did not want to clean 2 bathrooms. So because of that, a big thing was to be able to, for both of us to get ready at the same time. So we chose a rig that the bathroom had dual sinks and was big enough for both of us to get ready. That met our needs.
Here's another pro, convenience, because convenience usually is a result of having more options, and the bigger the rig, the more options you're going to have. For example, onboard laundry.
Yeah, I really do appreciate the onboard laundry. Not having to find a laundromat and haul your laundry to the laundromat, plus the added expense of using a laundromat.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they're getting more expensive all the time.
Also, the struggle with storage and the Tetris style storage that drove me nuts with our small travel trailer. Every time I wanted something, having to take everything out and get something and put it back. However, if you like stuff, that can be considered a con because you can just pile the stuff on and you get heavy and then you're overweight and you got a lot of stuff.
That's true, because with a rig like this, you have a much higher cargo carrying capacity. We're larger, we're heavier duty. This RV chassis, especially in diesel pushers, Class A diesel pushers, they're often built to handle more weight in the payload.
But a fifth wheel, I know that so many people struggle with cargo carrying capacity, so you do have to watch your weight. Even though there's a ton of storage, you really do need to watch your weight. So that could be a con, but for us, it's definitely a pro having the bigger rig in the Class A.
Yeah, which also goes to speak to towing capacity or towing ability, because the greater capacity you have for towing a separate vehicle, you can
drive what you want.
You can drive what you want.
If you're in a Class A. It doesn't really count if we're
That's
talking fifth wheels or travel trailers. Okay. Entertaining.
That's nicer.
It's a little easier in a big rig. You can play games, you can serve meals and not have to be outside if it's raining or buggy or...
It's easier for people to sleep over, which we do every once in a while.
So entertaining is easier, more convenient in a bigger rig.
How about visibility and that big windshield?
Yeah, I like it.
It's a panoramic vista. The bus-like design of a Class A motorhome with its huge windshield provides this amazing panorama that we just really think is part of the experience of owning this kind of a rig.
But to be fair, if you were in a fifth wheel or a travel trailer and you're in a truck, no matter what the size is behind you, you do have the same view.
Yeah, that's true.
So for Class A, it's definitely a pro.
Thankfully, we feel like we chose the right rig. This rig is not too big, not too small for the lifestyle that we have chosen.
The question is a big rig right for you?
That's the question.
And here's our bottom line advice. Choose the smallest rig that you can, but still be comfortable in the lifestyle that you want. We've seen many people leave RVing because they chose something just too small and they weren't comfortable with the lack of personal space.
And conversely, we've seen people leave the lifestyle because their rig was too big. They weren't comfortable with all of the maneuverability issues and the logistical issues.
Right, all the planning. It was just too much for them and it was too burdensome and they just walked away. They couldn't handle it.
Yeah, in both of these cases, too small or too big, the ratio of maneuverability and ease to the personal comfort and convenience is off balance.
It's just off balance. So it's really important to think long and hard about how you want to use your rig. Will you be parked in one place for a long time, or will you travel frequently? What do you prefer? Do you prefer RV parks or places off the beaten path and down dirt roads?
Yeah, our advice is to actually plan a trip you've been wanting to take for a long time, maybe your dream trip, and start looking at routes and campgrounds, including state or national parks or boondocking if that's your thing.
Right. Look at your dream trip and see what options are available in the size of rig that you're seriously contemplating. How far away will I have to camp from where I want to be? Some people just really want to be inside the national park, but if you're in a bigger rig, that's not going to happen. But if there's a park that you really want to go to or a place that you really want to see, how far away are you going to have to camp to go visit? And is it worth it to you? Before we bought our rig, I listed all the campgrounds that we had loved and just wanted to return to, because there were quite a few, especially in our travel trailer. We loved that thing and we went all over. But we found we were not able to fit in all the places that we loved and we wanted to return. But there was one. There was our happy place. And that was Rincon Parkway
Beach,
along
Ventura, California.
Along the Pacific Coast Highway. That was just a non-negotiable. We had to fit in there. And so there was no way that we could go over 40 feet and still camp there. So that was our benchmark. That was as small as we could go and still be comfortable. 40 feet was it.
So that is our take on choosing, living, and traveling in a big rig. We would ask that you would leave a comment if you want to share the process that you use when choosing your rig size and what worked for you.
Yeah, and if it's still working for you. So you'll be helping others who are currently struggling to make this decision, and there are a lot of you out there struggling to make the decision because we are hearing about it. Yeah? And we see it on Facebook pages just all the time. That is the question. So we hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time. Bye.